Hello, fellow chemical engineering students and Dr. Cooper. My name is Kyle Christensen, and I will be giving a presentation about biodiesels, specifically using algae as a source of biodiesel fuel. The paper that this presentation is based on is entitled Seeing Green by Thaddeus Webster, Benjamin Chang, and Ehab Farag from the University of New Hampshire. The objectives of my presentation are as follows: to define biodiesels and talk about their present and future uses, the advantages and disadvantages to using biodiesels in general, and then specifically biodiesels derived from algae oil. The main objective and technical focus of this talk is how to optimize algae growth. The more algae that can be grown in a given area means more abundant sources for our fuels and therefore cheaper fuel for everyone to use. So what exactly is a biodiesel? A biodiesel is a non-petroleum-based fuel created by the transesterification of oils and fats. One of the most promising sources of biodiesels is algae. Why use biodiesels? First, when these oils are burned, they do not emit harmful gases like carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. Algae actually consume carbon dioxide during photosynthesis, so if enough of these farms are made, hopefully the dramatic increase of carbon dioxide emissions will be curbed. Here are some of the advantages of using biodiesels, which include: they are derived from renewable sources, they are compatible with most of the engines in cars today, they are environmentally friendly and biodegradable. Currently, there are definite disadvantages of using biodiesels that scientists are hoping to overcome in the next couple years. These include lower reaction yields leading to poor fuel economy. They are expensive to produce. At this point in time, it would be impossible to use biodiesels to power everything because there are simply not enough resources at the moment. Algae oil tends to be highly viscous and not very volatile, which prevents the oil from burning completely. This muck seen here is the stuff that could be fueling our cars and homes someday. So why algae? Algae are natural to the environment, and vast amounts can be produced without harming ecosystems. Algae also require 3 simple ingredients to thrive: water, sunlight, and carbon dioxide. There are many different types of algae, but the best so far is the scum that sits on top of ponds. These algae will be grown near facilities that pour out carbon dioxide, helping to combat the amount of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere. So here's the meat of the presentation. If automobiles are going to be relying on this algae, researchers have to find some way to make a lot of it. There are 3 major factors that contribute to algae growth and the amount of oil that is then extracted from these algae. First, the type of algae that is used. Second, algae grow at varying rates depending on the environment they are in. Finally, there are different methods on how to extract the oil from the algae. My presentation will focus on different engineering methods related to growing algae in different environments. Here are some of the more detailed notes that researchers have concluded when dealing with algae growth. They concluded that the optimum algae growths occurred between 20 and 30 degrees Celsius. Algae only use about 10% of the sun's light. Higher doses can be lethal. However, this light can only penetrate through about 4 inches of algae, so chemical engineers are building photobioreactors to increase algae growth efficiency. A photobioreactor is essentially a transparent cylinder surrounded by sources of light. As you can see, there are a number of photobioreactors that are currently in existence today, but the most common one for the cultivation of algae is the tubular reactor. One of the tubular reactors is shown here. The American Institute of Chemical Engineers paper, Seeing Green, talks about growing algae in water with varying salt concentrations. Using 0.1 molar sodium chloride, the researchers would test to see how algae would grow in different saline solutions. The first step in the experiment was to determine whether or not the addition of sodium chloride would have a positive or negative effect upon the growth of the algae. The control was a nutrient solution, without the addition of any sodium chloride. This was compared to a solution that did contain sodium chloride along with the nutrient solution. For the second trial, 2 other strains were placed in pure ocean water, and the third solution was 50% sodium chloride and 50% ocean water. It was found that the algae grew significantly better in a solution with sodium chloride than without it. However, if the salt concentrations are too high, like pure salt water, the algae do not grow as well because they need other nutrients to survive that the pure salt water does not provide. There was moderate growth in the ocean water, but when sodium chloride was added to the ocean water, the most significant growth over the 2-week period took place. Using ocean water to grow algae could cut production costs significantly because it is so abundant. The final observed results that optimized algae growth were 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness, 8.8% saline solution, 23 degrees Celsius, and an irradiance of 30 to 60 watts per meter squared. Irradiance is the electromagnetic radiation at a surface per unit area. Here are some statistics to put this all in perspective. 100 acres of algae could produce approximately 10 million gallons of biodiesel fuels per year, or about 100,000 gallons per acre. Researchers estimate that it would take approximately 140 billion gallons of algae-produced biodiesels to replace the volume of petroleum-based fuels that the world goes through annually. There would need to be about 95 million acres of biodiesel-producing plants to meet this quota. So what does this all mean, and how will it impact our future? Algae seem like a promising source of fuel. The major bump is figuring out ways to mass-produce algae and finding efficient ways to obtain the oil from the algae. The experiments that the University of New Hampshire researchers are performing may lead to an economically feasible way to produce algae in large amounts. When fossil fuels are no more, we will need to turn to a renewable source of reliable energy to keep our lives going, and one of those sources is algae-derived biodiesels. Any questions? Here is a list of sources I used for my presentation.